want you to do now is take a look at the conversation move sheet, and then we're going to take a look at your thick questions that you came up with. And does either one of you want to start first with your? How are you guys going to decide who goes first?
Do you want to go first next time, or do you want me to go first next time? Okay.
Nice.
Okay. The question number 1 is he kidnapped? Because he hasn't showed up in one day.
The dog, right?
No, the professor.
The professor.
Because he's always on time. And he wasn't there all yesterday.
How do you respond to that? So remember, we want to keep this conversation going back and forth. So if this is her question, you either need to tell her what you think or add on to her idea.
Well, I think he's pretty much like going to work, probably. But then he was probably old that then. So, maybe he could have died or something like that.
Kind of disagree because I think that he sounds like a healthy man. In the beginning, he sounds like he's healthy and everything like that.
What are some of the clues that make us think that he might be a healthy person?
Kind of he walks to the station, which it says it's 2 miles away.
Okay.
And he's playing with his dog. They're they're jumping up and down.
Great.
I don't think he could just die in one day.
So you have something in your schema that's telling you when people exercise a lot, they're probably healthy.
Yeah.
Do you want to add on to that, Karen?
Well, I think I kind of agree with you because he seems like he's having a happy life with his dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Mason is like a healthy soup, so I think he'll be happy too.
So it sounds like he eats healthy also. Good. So going on to this idea, is he kidnapped? Your response, Karen, was that you didn't think he was kidnapped. You thought maybe he had died.
Because my sister, she read it.
And did she tell you about it?
No, not the whole story.
Good. Because remember we talked about that. If she tries to tell you, ask her not
She
to.
just told me the middle.
Okay. So, what about your first big question?
Where is the professor?
Okay, so it sounds like those are questions very similar to each other.
Not like he had a specific
You had an idea.
of where he is.
Good.
Or what happened to him.
Okay. So how could you take your ideas and put them together to come up with a prediction, which is the next part of your discussion meeting?
Putting our ideas together maybe not kidnapped, then he'll be there for so long that he might pass away.
What do you think, Karen?
I think that's pretty good at prediction.
So what would you write as your prediction then?
He will probably pass away.
He was kidnapped and then pass away.
Okay, let's write it down as our prediction. Oh, I have a pencil for you, Karen. Here you go. Okay. And how about your next thick question? Go ahead, Karen.
Why isn't the professor coming?
How would you answer that question?
Well, I think that kind of leads back to my first idea. He's kidnapped.
Okay, good. So have this conversation. Remember, it's supposed to be fluid, going back and forth. So Karen, she says, well, that kind of leads us back to our first question, right? So then you want to respond to that by saying, well, what I meant was, or you can add on to your original question.
Well, I wrote, why isn't the professor coming? Because the most thing I was wondering about was about the professor. when is he coming, or like why isn't he coming?
Why isn't he coming? So your first question was more about where he was, and this one is why isn't he coming back? Okay.
I kind of have some scheming since, kind of for you, but since you're like a teacher and he's a professor, and sometimes you have to stay late at work or to get something ready. Maybe he's just going to come back late at night because he had to get something ready for the school tomorrow.
Okay, that's true. And so you're using some evidence from the text as well, because you're saying, well, I know that teachers usually work late, and he may be just working late on a special project.
Well, I think in the book when we read it, I think it said that it passed 3 days. So I don't think he would stay there for long.
Check your books. Oh, I'm glad you're citing your evidence. And remember, in your reader's notebooks, when you were writing down questions or connections that you were making, you were writing down the
He's all
page
healthy
number.
there and everything like that. He's smiling.
Yep. We can use some of the illustrations. Karen, did you write down in your reader's notebook maybe where you had remembered that it said he was gone for 3 days? Do you remember the page number?
It said, on chapter 5 on this page, the 39 when we stopped, it said that they came at 9 o'clock, before 9 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that passed a day.
Okay, so you think it's been from one morning to the next morning. What about your idea of it being 3 days?
Well, because I just, like, remember something saying about 3 days in the book.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Keisha? Do you remember that at all?
I just know that it became midnight and he had to shut up the thing, the station. The station manager had to, when his son had to go, he had to go. But I think that maybe that he, like, finally when he, like, finished, he kind of went there and he's missed the train. Maybe he'll, like, stay at a hotel or something.
Okay.
And then he'll come back in the morning.
Okay, so maybe he just missed the train.
Yeah, and he'll be back, like, tomorrow at 3 a.m. So he'll just go to the nearest hotel, then go back to school, then come back.
Okay. All right, so we have a couple of different ideas there about where he is and why he isn't coming back. What is your next big question?
What will happen to Hachiko if he's not there?
Yeah, what happens to Hachiko if he's not there? What's happened so far? Tell me what's going on at the train station.
Well, in the book it said that he was gonna, like, he was staying there, but he wouldn't go even when, like, everyone had his friend or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was kind of like his guardian, and he would take him out to go to his home, but he wouldn't, but he looked at his finger, and he looked that way, but he didn't go and follow his directions. He just stayed there, then walked that way.
I kind of got this because the little boy that is always wanting to pet Hachiko and everything says we're the professor and Hachiko. Or Hachi is what he calls
Or
him.
the short name for Hachiko, right?
Hachi. So I think that maybe Hachi, when he left, he didn't really want to come back. Because he maybe thought his professor would come home to him. So he didn't have to go there.
Well, I kind of thought of another idea why Acacia was talking, but maybe the professor could have gotten in a different way, because the train was too crowded, so maybe you have to go in a taxi and go with home.
Okay. What about Hachi when he's waiting at the platform? If you could infer, like, how he's feeling, like, think about if there's ever been a time that you've waited for someone to come and they were late. What kind of things do you think? If a dog could think like a person, what do you think would be going
Because
on?
he's always like, it seems like he's always like understanding, like if they say like, Hachi, do you know why? And he's always like, I feel like he can read time because he's always there 5 minutes before 3. So like, it seems like he can kind of think, like Willie's dog.
Oh, Willie's dog in Stone Fox?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was special about, I mean, I'm glad you're making that connection because these dogs, what's an adjective